Benjamin Franklin once said, "The bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten." The fact is, quality matters. Join us as we make quality fun, interesting, and accessible to companies of all levels. Quality Matters is a must-listen for all things quality. Listen in, ask questions, and get back to doing what matters most. Quality Matters, brought to you by Texas Quality Assurance, where quality management gets simplified.
Hello and welcome back to the Quality Matters podcast. I am Kyle Chambers, and we don't have Darcy here today, but I do have another frequent guest returning to us. We've got Mark LaCour going to be on the podcast today, and today is a combination of just normal podcast, talking about some fun, interesting topics, but we're combining that with discussing an upcoming conference that we've got. So this is a really, really fun idea that we had last year, kind of talking about contingency plans, and especially, from living in the Gulf Coast, from everything from hurricanes to the Snowmageddon a few years ago, everything that happened with COVID. Lord knows there's no shortage of areas where your team and your business can struggle from different risks and problems that we encounter on a very regular basis. So we decided to put together a conference to kind of talk about these things, provide some tools, resources. And one of the big things is we just want to get as much information out there that is helpful to you. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. So with that, let me bring on Mark LaCour. If you've not been following the podcast before, of course, I don't know how many people don't know this guy at this point, but Mark is with OGGN, and gosh, y'all got like every podcast under the sun for the oil and gas. So it's really, really awesome to have you here.
Good to be back. And there's a lot of people that don't know me, but most importantly, I know you and you know me, so we're in a good place.
Cool. Well, hey, want to first kind of give folks just a little bit of info on the conference we've got coming up. So this is going to be happening later this year in Pasadena, but we've got really a lot of fun topics we're kind of talking about. So Mark, I know this is something that was a little unique, is we'd never seen any type of a business continuity conference for the energy industry. So kind of, let's talk a little bit about what folks can expect from the conference and some of the topics that we're going to be discussing and helping folks out with there.
Yeah. So before we go there, let's talk about the why. Let's talk about
Sure.
why you and I decided this is important. So right now, the world's in a bit of an energy shortage. And energy is something that is invaluable to everybody. You may not realize that the cup of coffee you had this morning required so much energy to grow those beans, to ship them, to roast them, to refine them, to actually brew them into whatever coffee brew of choice that you use. And so what happens is we don't notice energy until it's not there. And here in the Gulf Coast, we're in kind of the epicenter of a lot of the energy industry itself, a lot of the petrochemical plants, the refineries, pipelines, even the exploration or production. And we can't have any of that sort of stuff go down. And when it goes down, it's an issue. Not only is it an issue to the quality of life of people, but it's also can be dangerous, right? And then it affects companies' bottom lines. So we decided, it's like, you know what? Keeping everything up and running is so important. We need to do a conference. And then what we decided was, this should not just be a conference of the big boys, right? Yeah. If you're a small two-man shop and you have a product or service that helps keep businesses up and running, we want you to come and join us. We want to showcase what you're doing because it's important to everybody. And like Kyle mentioned earlier, in the Gulf Coast, I mean, we're living Hurricane Alley, and then we have these freak winter storms. We have pandemics, flooding, all kinds of different natural and man-made disasters that can have impacts on people's business. And we just want to bring everybody together in one place to learn and to learn how to mitigate these impacts so that if something bad happens, not only are your people safe, but your business stays up and running and profits keep rolling in.
I couldn't have said it better. And I mean, that's it. That's hitting the nail on the head. I mean, this is so much of what is in the background of running a business that folks don't usually think about. To be honest with you, I think a lot of folks consciously try to avoid thinking about, because it's like, well, what am I going to do if a hurricane comes? I can't stop the hurricane. What am I going to do if we have another pandemic or supply chain issues? Like, I can't do anything about it. But maybe you can. And that's kind of the point that we want to get to, is like, well, what can we do to better prepare? Again, we talk about the quality management systems all the time. And so API has a standard for oil field service providers, API Spec Q2. in it, they have the explicit requirement for contingency plans. So it's like, okay, well, we need a contingency plan. What for? What for? I remember when I worked for the turbine industry, I remember management coming to me one day saying, Kyle, we need a business continuity plan. I'm like, cool. I barely even know what those 3 words mean strung together. So yeah, let me get one written up for you real quick. So Mark, what are some of the things that I guess you've kind of seen different businesses do to help prepare for these issues ahead of time? And what are some things that folks might could expect from the conference and some of the content that we're going to have coming out beforehand?
Yeah, so planning is super important. You want to think through every scenario, and you want to think through the scenario from worst case scenario to least case scenario. Let me give you a good example. Let's talk about connectivity, right? So I run a podcasting company. I have people all over the US. I actually have people all over the world. And being able to access our records, our files, and everything is vital to keep our business running. So what happens if I lose connectivity for an hour? That's not that big a deal. But what happens if we lose connectivity for the whole company? It just winds down and stops.
Yep.
So simple things, right? So we use cloud providers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cloud providers have redundancy data centers, redundancy geographic locations. So they're taking care of all that. So our business can stay up and running no matter what happens right here in my house at Richmond, Texas.
Yeah.
And if you look at the bigger companies, they also have plans to handle any type of disaster. They typically have remote operations. They have the ability to move their data centers around. They have ability to bring in people, even if that's contract labor. They have emergency medical supplies available, even maybe EMTs. They may even have contracts with companies to move their people around the world. But that's the big companies. Smaller companies can take advantage of a lot of the same stuff too, because the cost of a lot of this has come down dramatically. Because technology has made everything much simpler and easier to get a hold of. So, once again, if you run a smaller company, you need to come here. You need to understand what tools and processes are available to you. And it's not just for the big guys, right? The smaller companies, the mid-sized companies need to have a plan in place, but that plan needs to be actionable. And then Kyle, one of the things I've seen, and I've seen this with very large companies and I've seen this with small companies, is they have a plan, but they never practice it. They never actually flip the switch, right?
Yes.
So one of the things that we're doing at the conference is we're bringing the people and the companies together to help you practice whatever it is that you need in your business continuity plan. And that could be very simple stuff to very scary stuff. Things like active shooters. Unfortunately, this is March 28th. We just had an active shooter happen in the U.S. Where was it? In
I think I haven't been on the watching much. I think it was Nashville, but forgive me if I'm not correct on that. Anyway, but
we just had one happen. And the details haven't been released yet, but I promise you that in today's world, your company needs to have a plan on how to address an active shooter. Same way if you're a large company. And these are the type of things that people don't like to talk about because they're uncomfortable. But you have to do it. And so we're bringing all the resources together in one place for one day at one time for you to learn how to make sure that your business stays up, that your people stay safe, and profits keep rolling in. And nobody has done this as far as we know, and definitely nobody has done this with a focus on the energy industry.
No. And, so you talk about testing it. I remember when I was a sysadmin, that was one of my big things. I wanted to do a regular quarterly disaster recovery plan. And, my wife hated me doing it. But, what it meant is, I'll just stay late on a Friday and I'll wait till about 8 or 9 o'clock when everyone's kind of cleared out in the office. And I'd literally just yank the plug on our server rack and hope and pray that things go well. But it wasn't so much hope and prayer because it was we'd taken the time to put all these systems in place, and then you monitor and test it and things like that. But I remember how much time it took for me to come up with that plan and develop it. I mean, we're talking about a year of prep work before I'm able to do that test and pull the plug. And man, wouldn't it be great if someone could have the opportunity to sit down with someone that has some of this IT security experience and say, hey, how can we help out things at our shop? How can we better prepare? And then same thing for, we think about natural disasters real common. And we're going to be putting out a lot of free content coming up to the conference, and especially for folks that are there. But one of them's going to be a hurricane contingency plan. It's like, okay, well, when we see there's a storm in the Gulf, like at what point do we need to say, maybe I need to do something about it? So we've got a 5-day plan. Every time you see that there's a storm it's supposed to hit you in 5 days, we start acting on it. Now, God willing, it goes 5-4. Nope, didn't need to do anything. 5-4. Nope, didn't need to do anything. But eventually, we're going to get down to that one day before, and we know everything that needs to get done and completed. And you talk about active shooter. Like this was something the church we were attending before COVID. Like this was something that we actually sat down and had plans on and contingencies for us. God forbid, some hothead comes in here having whether it's problems with life or whatever the case is, and they've decided that this is the solution to their problems. Well, how are we going to keep folks safe? How are we going to manage this situation? And that's what risk mitigation is. That's what contingency planning is. That's what business continuity. It's all kind of various terms for the same idea.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I promise you, in this conference, there are many, many experts there that can help you figure this stuff out. If you've never done this, you're going to miss something, right?
Yep.
So why stake your business, your revenue, your people's safety on you making sure you cover everything? Come to the conference where the experts are so that everything is covered, and so that you actually know what you have to worry about and more importantly, what you don't have to worry about.
Yes. Yeah, and because it's going to be very different for every organization. It's not like there's any such thing as a cookie cutter solution here. You talking about putting everything in the cloud. This was a decision that we had to make with Texas Quality about 2015, 2016. Is I had the opportunity to actually buy a lot of server space. There was it had an opportunity, like I say, it was kind of one of these the data centers, and I had a chance to buy several of those server racks and get everything connected. And I like the idea. It means long term, a lot less cost, a lot more control over everything. But ultimately, we made the decision to put everything in Microsoft 365 because it lowers our month to month risk. Same thing, talking about connectivity. I don't have to worry about, backup bandwidth solutions and things of that nature. I know it's there. I know it's handled, know it's cared for. And we still have our backup solutions and whatnot in place, but it works well.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Microsoft, you need to come get a booth because we are also an Office 365 shop for those exact same reasons.
Yes.
So we let Microsoft manage all that risk. And it allows me to sleep at night knowing that no matter what happens, my team from anywhere in the world, as long as they have internet access, can access our install and access all the files and documents that we need safely and securely. That's a peace of mind. So, yeah, Microsoft, you need to get booth space.
Amen. So, some of the other topics we're going to be talking about. So, obviously, we're going to be talking about natural disasters. I think that kind of goes without saying. Workplace violence, active shooter. I'm going to be talking about physical security, cybersecurity. It kind of kills me when I go do some of these visits because, we do the quality management work and I get to go see a lot of different shops. And the inner geek in me just wants to scream every time I see a server rack that is not behind a locked door.
Yep.
It just absolutely just irks me because I'm not saying, even granted, that makes it much more likely for someone to do something nefarious, intentionally be destructive. But you also get a lot of curious folks. You get someone who spills their coffee walking next to the closet. This crap can happen. And so it's just stuff that folks don't think about.
It does happen.
Yeah. It's just all sorts of stuff can happen, but we'll be talking about, things for emergency preparedness. Now, for any of our safety clients, they know that this is something we push, but it shouldn't only be for our occupational health and safety clients have to worry about emergency preparedness, like basic things. Again, God willing, you never have to worry about it. But do you have a muster point selected? Yep. Have you actually done a drill to see how long it takes you to get your people there? One of the fun things I used to love to do is I never told anyone when the drill was coming. It was just a couple of the managers that knew. But I would go out into the shop and I'd find someone and be like, look, when we do the drill today, which you can't say anything about, I want you to sneak off to the bathroom and we're going to see if anyone finds you. We're going to see if anyone notices that you're not here. And I'd, buy them lunch or something if they manage to get left behind. Just because I wanted a good test of, hey, are we aware of these issues that come up? And the same thing, talking about crisis management, environmental response. I mean, this is becoming more and more of a big deal these days. It's like, well, what are our environmental risks? And again, I'm not saying that you have to be ready for ISO 14001 certification for this stuff to matter, but really, what are your environmental risks? Do you have any chemicals in your facility that, God forbid, someone hits with a forklift? Maybe we need to have a plan in place of how to clean this up ahead of time. Just imagine you got a drum full of sulfuric acid and some goober hits it with a forklift.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any clue what to do?
Yeah. And the other thing, Kyle, is you also need to have a crisis communication plan. In today's social media heavy world, if somebody hits that drum of sulfuric acid with a forklift and the news finds out, the public perception could destroy your company overnight. How do you communicate that, right? If you have a decent sized organization, I've always said 10 people or more, one of your people should have emergency medical training. I'm not saying they need to be a paramedic, but one of your people needs to know basic CPR, how to stop bleeding until help gets there. And it's all stuff that you can plan for. That's not expensive. But if you don't do it when you need it, it won't be there.
Yeah. And look, Lord knows that I have spent countless hours looking for some of these vendors before. And, I think this was going to be so awesome about this conference is it's going to be a chance to get in front of a lot of folks that can provide solutions in a lot of different areas. But, what you're talking about with, crisis management, one of the things that's funny when we go through consultation projects with folks is the number one, what our clients consider useless procedure is a communications procedure. We're like, Kyle, we're a small shop. There's only 20 of us. There's 50 of us, or even one client's got like 150 folks. Like, seriously, we need a communications procedure. We all know how this stuff works. Every procedure talks about communication within it. I'm like, yes, but we need a summary communications procedure. And in that procedure, one of the things we need to say is who is and who isn't allowed to talk to public officials, who is and who isn't allowed to talk to news and media.
Right.
I mean, it could turn into a you could take a bad situation and turn it absolutely horrible and be on the nightly news in a heartbeat these days.
Yeah. And then post whatever the event is happened, you can set yourself up in a bad place legally if you don't have this planning in place. And once again, let's hope you never need it. But if you need it, make sure that you have it, make sure it's been rehearsed. And the other thing we're doing, which I think is cool, is we're having a bunch of vendors that are coming in, a bunch of exhibitors that have tools and processes to help with anything and everything imaginable. However, we're not going to allow them to try to sell you anything. What they're going to do is they're going to educate. So what we're hoping is as you come as an attendee, you get to learn all the different offerings that are out there, how they get put together, how you'd want to put together your plan for your company, and when I say company, this may also be your household. I live in Richmond, Texas. We had a tornado touchdown not that long ago, and my teenage son hates this, but we practice not very often, twice a year. We practice what happens if there's a tornado that hits close, right? Where's the safest room in the house? How do we get there? How do we make sure the whole family's there? So come to the conference, learn. You're not going to be sold to. We're going to have a lot of fun, and it's going to be something that's super valuable to you in the future for both you personally, your company, your employees, your family, and we're just trying to make sure that we give back in a way that's educational. And it's going to be it's in September in Pasadena, right in the heart of the petrochemical industry. So if you work in downstream, uptime is critically important to what you do. You can't quit producing product or you lose money. Make sure you're there as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, and here's, so some fun stuff about it too, is we're going to have a couple of different tiers for tickets. We're going to have what we call the VIP pass. The very cool thing about that is for the VIP passes, you're going to get a chance to sit down in a much smaller setting, much smaller group. Because I think we've all tried to do the Q&A and, you raise your hand, you're one of, a handful that, never get selected, or maybe your answer is only like 10, 15 seconds long. You really just wanted to dig a little bit more out of it because these folks know what they're talking about. So we're going to have that chance for you to be a part of a smaller group setting to really ask some of those questions in a closer to a one-on-one type conversation. Again, this is just something like I've never seen before. It's kind of like when we started building the QMS software at TQA Cloud. I said, look, I want to build the software I wish I'd had years ago. And I think that's kind of what we're doing with this conference. It's like, okay, let's take all of the great things that we always kind of wished we'd had. Let's see what we can package and bundle in here together. So I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah. If you've gone to conferences, that a lot of times the most valuable part of the conference is the talk in the hallways in between the sessions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to turn it on its head, and we're trying to make this entire conference the talk in the hallways between sessions, right?
Yep.
We want it to be super valuable. We want you to walk away with some very valuable information. Nobody's going to try to sell you anything, and it's going to help you be prepared once again, both personally and for your business.
Yeah.
If you're a one-man shop or if you're a $10 billion a year company, you need to be there.
It is. I mean, and it's so true that all of the requirements for these large organizations that we would typically think about, they still apply for every small business out there. And anyone that's listening to this podcast, you know me for any period of time, like I am super passionate about small business. I mean, it is the absolute backbone of our American economy and this way of life that we all live. And, a small business, I think we all know they can pivot and turn and change so much more rapidly than a larger organization. But it also means that you are at higher risk for some of these issues than a large organization that perhaps has the cash that they could throw at something if necessary. Small business, the wrong mistake and the wrong time, that can really put you out. I know when COVID hit, it was not just crazy for us, but it was like in that first month, we lost virtually, because we've got a lot of clients that are just annual internal audit, and they disappeared immediately. By the end of the year, we realized that a third of our customer base, which is almost exclusively small business, they were out. Either they were shut down or operations paused for some period of time, or they got merged into a larger organization. But a third of them within that first year are just gone, never to be heard of or from again. And that's type of stuff we want to be able to help folks prevent and mitigate.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the pandemic and the pandemic response. The other thing is, what we all learned through the pandemic is that government adds some assistance, but you need to be able to protect your own and keep your own business up and running. So we actually also have financial experts there to talk about planning for catastrophes. Understanding that the government aid will come eventually, but it may not be there right away.
No.
And after all of us going through that, to your point, there's so many companies that had no financial planning for crisis management, and they were caught unaware. And quite frankly, the cash flow disappeared, and they disappeared. And there's ways to plan to keep that from happening. There's even insurance policies for that, and we're gonna have all of that at our Energy Continuity Conference.
Yeah. No, it's going to be awesome. And, we talk about in the quality management world, this whole idea of a PDCA, plan, do, check, act. So it's so oftentimes just kind of one of these intellectual ideas. We never really try to put boots to the ground on it. But that's really what this is this is a chance to sit down and really kind of think about it and plan out, well, what are the significant risks to our organization? And which ones of those need mitigation? I mean, this is all risk management is anyways in the world that we live in for, compliance consultation, is you just have to identify like, what are the terrible things that could do us in, and what's likelihood of these things happening? Which ones do we need to have a plan in place for? And again, it's going to be different for every single person that comes to visit, but I think it's really going to be amazing. Kind of an example of how different it is. Okay, so you're talking about the hurricane drill that you'll do at home, or not hurricane, sorry, tornado. So we were discussing this recently as well. We moved out to the country here about a year ago, and we are 8 miles down a dirt road. Right, if power goes out, we're up a creek for a while. It may be 2 or 3 weeks before someone can get the poles and the lines replaced. So we've got a small home generator set up. Now, it's not a fancy solution where it automatically trips and turns back on, but we've got a little work instruction written out of, hey, power goes out, step by step. Here's what you do. Here's how you get it hooked up. Here's how you go. So we'll be without power for about an hour. And then tornado. So we actually have realized that we've got a little bit of work to do on planning for this at home ourselves, because our 14-year-old is actually, we've got a small guest house on the property. And so he was sharing a bedroom with his brother. That wasn't working real well. So we kicked him out to the guest house, which, look, if I was a 14-year-old, man, that'd be the coolest freaking thing in the world, right? I got my own house at 14. Okay, so we're talking like, well, if there's a tornado, I know what I'm going to do for the little ones, but what about the big one? Where's he going to go? What are we going to do? So we've got some things to figure out there, but it's the same process at the workplace. Is you got to sit down and think, well, what actually would we do? Let's just run that scenario in our head real quick. Let's say power goes out for a day and we can't get it restored. what impact does that have on our business? Or what do we have to keep going? How important is continuous production? Maybe we've got an alternate facility that we could spin up production levels on, or whatever the case may be. But these are the things that you've got to sit down and really think about and plan about. And I don't know about everyone, but I know for myself it's so much easier to do these planning sessions when I've got other folks to bounce ideas off of.
Yep.
I mean,
the other thing is, I want to be crystal clear here. This conference is just not for business continuity people, right? I would think anybody that leads a team, anybody that's in operations, you need to be at this conference. Everybody's role is important when something bad happens. And the more minds and eyes you have on the problem, to Kyle's point, the easier it is that you can adapt to whatever's going on and making sure that everything stays safe, and that business keeps up and running. So this is not for business continuity experts. This is for anybody that runs a team, anybody that's in operations. You need to be there to learn from the experts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Learn from the experts, learn from the other folks that are there. Let's just get a chance to open up some dialogue, open up some conversations, and hopefully you can find some folks that can help you solve a problem. But even if not, God willing, hopefully you can just glean enough useful information to go put some changes in place in your organization and see the benefit that comes from it. Again, I'm super excited about this. Again, when we do our consultation work, this is one of the most difficult pieces, is sitting down and doing this risk evaluation, this risk assessment. Really, what could go wrong? How are we going to respond to it? And a bigger question, and this is a hard one to answer, is yes, it's a risk. Does it merit mitigation? Yes or no? Not every risk merits mitigation. And so again, this is going to be that chance to kind of sit down and do it. But this is that whole process, in action. So it's going to be really cool. So Mark, who else so far is involved in this? So obviously we've got Texas Quality Assurance, OGGN, but you got some other kind of big name folks that are already involved in supporting and helping out here.
Yeah, shout out to National Oil Varco. They're going to be there. It looks like Ford is going to be there with one of their F-150 Lightnings as a
cool.
as a way to mitigate loss of electricity. Right?
It's really cool.
We have some other big companies I can't mention yet that are going to be there, but it's just, the other thing I want to say is it's also going to be fun. This subject can be a little dark and heavy. We're going to have a good time. We're going to be doing live podcasts. We're going to have roaming reporters. Going to have great foods. We're going to have a cocktail hour. Maybe you even do a session on how to mitigate your employees' risk at a cocktail hour. We're gonna have a good time with this. So you're gonna learn a lot. It's gonna be educational. It's good for you and your business, but we're gonna have fun. You're gonna be able to network with your peers, especially in the energy industry. So a lot more value added than you would think. Just come by. It's not a whole bunch of money. It's our first year of doing this. We want you to come help us shape the program. So buy a ticket, buy an exhibitor spot. Let us know. The other thing is, if you do grab an exhibitor spot, we're actually recording podcasts with the exhibitors. So we're going to give the exhibitors access to our global audiences for free.
Yep.
So like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun. Even though the subject can be a little dark at times, we're going to take it and make it valuable and useful to you.
Well, so how can folks find out about it? Where can they go to either sign up to attend or sign up to exhibit?
Boy, that was a perfect segue, Kyle. Energy Continuity Conference.
We've done this a few times now.
And I'm sure Kyle put the link everywhere. But energycontinuityconference.com. Come join us. It's gonna be a really, really valuable and good time.
No, this is cool. I'm looking forward to it. Again, this is just kind of one of those topics that's so hard to address. And like you say, sometimes, it is kind of such a dark topic. And we just actively choose to not think about it because we know that there's a higher likelihood I'm going to get that deal tomorrow or, going to repair that equipment instead rather than think about, what if a worst case scenario happens? But I think the modern world is showing us more and more frequently that worst case scenarios happen more and more frequently than ever. And I don't mean that as to like scare tactics to scare folks to come to the conference, but unfortunately it's true.
Stuff happens and you have to be prepared to deal with it. Bottom line.
Yep. So this will be great, man. I am looking forward to getting it done. Looking forward to taking part in some of these future podcasts, which I think is going to be such a cool idea. Getting each one of the speakers and exhibitors on there to kind of talk about what they do, the niche that they help out in. Just tons and tons of great content to help folks out moving forward. So if you want to find out more about the conference, again, I'll have all of the info below. Definitely, if you love these podcasts, you need to check out what they're doing with the OGGN. Gosh, y'all got what, like 450,000 shows now? I mean, it's y'all got like 15, 20 different shows going on that I know of, I think.
We have 16 as of today, with 2 more launching in May, with 5 more launching this year.
There you go. Yeah. So no, these guys are awesome. Again, just lots of fun stuff. I'm looking forward to it, man. Mark, thank you for your time here. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome. I think we can do a lot of good for a lot of folks here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Kyle.
Awesome. Y'all take care, guys.
See ya.
All right, that's it. So again, I will make certain that we've got all of the information posted when the podcast here goes out. If you want to find out more about the Energy Continuity Conference, if you just want to find out more about how to manage risk within your business, give us a call. Check out some of our other videos on YouTube. Not even a plug for paid consultation here. Like, we try so hard to get a lot of very useful, helpful information out there for you for free. I was a quality manager before myself. I know how difficult it is to go find this information, source it, find what's good versus what's out there just for plugs on the internet, or obviously overly intellectual and not really useful for small business. So again, we want to make certain that we can get the tools and resources you need so that you can save time and energy for what matters most. So with that, I am out, and I hope you all have a great day.